Alright folks, hello and welcome to this video example. In this video we'll be looking at an example of Khan Academy homework on finding inverses of polynomial, radical, and rational functions. So those are three types of functions that we've looked at this year in class: polynomial, radical, and rational. And this is now the topic of finding inverses. Before we get to the question, I just want to give you a little bit of a different definition of a function than we've considered before. Previously in class we've defined a function as a relation where each input has exactly one output. But now I kind of want you to think of a function as a set of ordered pairs. It's still the same idea, but if you think about it as a set of ordered pairs, x comma y, again, where each input has the same output, one new notation we might use is to say, well, a function is the set of ordered pairs, x comma y, and these ordered pairs belong to the function. Okay, so if f is the function, x comma y belong to the function. Any ordered pair that follows the function rule belongs to the function. The reason I'm using this notation of x comma y belongs to f is because when we define the inverse of f, which we'll look at a little bit more specifically, all I want you to think of is we take all those ordered pairs that belong to regular f and we reverse them. That's what an inverse is. It says that if all x's and y's belong to f, well then y comma x, all those ordered pairs, okay, these same ordered pairs but now reversed, they belong to f inverse. And this is how we denote f inverse. F, it looks like to the negative 1, but it's really f inverse is how we say that. So just, as an example, concrete example, say 4 comma 3 was an ordered pair in f. Well, then 3 comma 4 would be an ordered pair in f inverse. Okay, so now let's look at how to find an inverse. Looking at this example here. Okay, so I'm going to give you a three-step process. It's a pretty classical three-step process to finding an inverse, and you should master it fairly quickly with practice. So first thing is to set f of x, just change that to a y, write it as y equals. We know f of x stands for the output when x is the input, so it's just another fancy way of writing y, and then write the function down again. Okay, we just wrote the function there. The next step, and this is the key step, is to interchange x and y. Remember how the f inverse, or the inverse of function f, is the same ordered pairs just all switched around? Well, to solve for it, we're simply going to do that in the general case. We're going to interchange x and y. In other words, I'm going to rewrite this equation, except wherever I see the y, I'm going to put the x, and whenever I see x, I'm going to put a y. So that's our second step, interchange x and y. And then the final step is we want to find f inverse. We want to find y as a function of x, or be able to solve for y in order to get the inverse function. So the final step is going to be to solve for y, and then we will have our f inverse. Okay, so first I added 8 to both sides in solving. Next I'll cube both sides. Remember, we're trying to isolate y. Cube both sides to get rid of the cube root. This will give us 5y minus 10. Lastly, we'll divide both sides by 10. Add 10 to both sides and then divide by 5, which will yield our final answer, which is y equals, and then you should show those steps on a separate piece of paper, just to make sure you can do them correctly. But our final answer, you can write it like this: y equals 1/5 x plus 8 cubed. And then we're going to add 10 and divide by 5, so that'll be plus 2. Okay, and that is the inverse function of f. For your final step, if you want to change this y back to the inverse of f, okay, using this notation, we can write it as f inverse of x, or the inverse of f, is equal to 1/5 x plus 8 cubed plus 2. And that's how you can find the inverse of any polynomial, radical, and rational function, or any inverse in that matter. If the inverse exists, and we'll talk about those conditions in class, but if the inverse exists, you can find that inverse in this three-step process of doing setting y, plugging in y for f of x, interchanging x and y, and solving for y. So please use this, rewind if you missed a step, and that should help you on your second Khan Academy. Thanks for watching this video example.